First thing we obviously want to do is remove the old deadbolt. So it should have a couple of screws on the inside of the door. Take a Phillips or flathead screwdriver and remove them. I actually had to break into this lock so it looks a little beat up. Otherwise yours probably looks a little bit cleaner.
So the bolts look like this. There's two of them. Once you remove them, this separates apart like this and we're left with your door, in which case we need to take another Phillips head screwdriver again, and we're going to remove the latch plate. And once you've unscrewed both of these screws, it simply pulls out.
This is the deadbolt that we're using. It was one of the cheaper ones. I think I paid about $45 for it. Also, since I had broken into this deadbolt, as I mentioned earlier, the top of that looks a little jacked up. The paint there, in an ideal world, I would sand that down and repaint it, but this is a storage closet and I just don't care enough right now. After we unbox it, we'll put the latch back in. You can see that in the center of that hole there's 3 spots for bolts, or if you will. The top 2 are the one that are on either side, are the bolts that will connect the plate on the back, and the other one is what will have the spindle that I'm pointing to right there. So you can see the electronic connection. We're just going to tuck that under the latch in the door and then put the spindle through that bottom middle hole that's in the middle of the door. And then this is the plate that goes on the back. You can see it says this part faces the door. Once you align it with the keypad in the front, you're going to put the bolts in. And be careful to first make sure that it's level or perpendicular, whichever one you want, with the door, because when you tighten it, that's going to determine whether the keypad on the front of the door is straight or not. So just be sure to double check that before you tighten the bolts. And we can see it's nice and tight and secure with once we tighten those in. And now we'll make the electronic connection. You can see there's a pretty obvious spot for where that pigtail is going to go. Snap it in place, and then we're going to use 3 tiny screws to attach that black plate to the or the black lock there to the metal plate. And I always recommend using hand tools for this. If you use electronic tools or electric tools, you could possibly strip something or go straight through the wood. So even though it takes a little bit longer, just use a hand tool. And you can see, testing it here, the lock operates quite smoothly, and that's what we're looking for. And now you can see we're just testing it with the key as well to make sure that it operates smoothly, and it does, so that's nice. Now we'll add the strike plate on. I did not have a spot for one previously, so I did use a power drill here, but again, I still recommend using hand tools. You may need to adjust the strike plate depending on whether or not it rubs against the deadbolt, but I got lucky here. Programming this thing is pretty easy. You'll want to start by hitting the lock button twice, then put in the master code, or the code that it currently is set to, the lock button again, the number 1, and then put in the new code. Hit the lock button one more time, repeat the code to make sure you got it right, lock button again, and you're all set. Now, I used 0987 as the master code. That's because I had played around with it a little bit before shooting the video, but the code that comes with the lock is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you just repeat those steps with that number, you should be fine.